Hello. I'm reviewing X-Men. In my thoughts on X-Men, I give it a 10 out of 10. The first X-Men movie. It has its problems, but I still like the movie a lot. Like, I wish they could have used the costumes from the comics. This X-Men movie. That would have made the movie a little cooler, I think. You know, instead of what we got was the costumes. I give this a 10 out of 10, this movie. I love the visuals, I love the cast, I love the characters, the reimagining of the X-Men characters, and the reimagining of the villains also for this universe. I enjoyed the reimagining of the characters for this universe of the X-Men. Well, it might not be X-Men to make exactly the most face. It's not. It's clearly like trying to be something different than what the comics were going for style. Like this X-Men movie has more sci-fi and less the X-Men movies compared to X-Men from the comics. The X-Men movie are more they look kind of different. It's not as well, it doesn't have the X-Men fantasy, doesn't have really the X-Men fantasy element that you would expect to see in something like titled X-Men. I mean, and not that this movie doesn't have its silly moments as well. The movie has a fair amount of good silly moments, like choosing most of the scene when Mystique turns into a model of the Statue of Liberty, and we see it's really Mystique, not really the statue. Or when the camera can catch Mystique's in disguise when she's disguising as Cedric killing at the end. And the camera caught Mystique's eyes changing color. And just pause the footage at the end and realize that's Mystique. Mystique's alive, so. Which will lead into X-Men United, also known as. I give X-Men United, X-Men 2, X-Men United. The sequel to X-Men is a great sequel and all. And I like the X-Men 3 sequel also, besides X-Men 2 of the original X-Men trilogy. I'm reviewing this video, I decided. All 3 films. I give X-Men and X-Men 2 United, and I give X-Men a 10 out of 10, and X-Men 2 United a 10 out of 10, and X-Men The Last Stand a 10 out of 10. You know, what's surprising about the X-Men movies is that the first 2 were were done by the same director, but the third one was done by a different director. And this was before Marvel hit, so this was actually before the Marvel Universe was a thing, and the fact that whoever directed the third one did his best to did his best to show the most often of the X-Men working together as a functioning unit, as a team together, and also in the third one, and also like I appreciate the third one did also his best to still keep the same aesthetic look as the previous films that Bryan Singer reimagined with the previous two that he directed. But has an incredibly different tone than the first two. Like this, the first two are way more has much more serious tone and had much more to the X-Men was concept more serious and it took him more and didn't throw his main plot elements as the third one does. Now that's kind of the problem with the third one. The third one has way more plot elements than the previous two. And more characters. A lot more characters. Yeah, than the previous two. And doesn't give as good a job as smoothing out as it doesn't get just as a smooth of job as you would like. It doesn't do as good a job smoothing out. It doesn't do as good a job as fleshing out the individual X-Men members if you compare it to the first two. It doesn't do as good as fleshing out each X-Men members. And that's kind of weird because this is the most, I feel like, in a way, this feels like the most X-Men movie out of the trilogy in many ways. This feels like the most X-Men like out of any of the X-Men movies. But I guess people when it came out, I guess people on that line don't really like some people are divisive on this movie. The third installment, the third installment is a bit split among people, I guess. Compared to the sequels, compared to the first two, while the first two, people still had their problems with the first. I guess this one, and I guess the third one is like the one that was divisive, more divisive on people when it came out, then became less divisive with people and more towards people liking it over time, I guess, on the internet. So this is, I guess, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, I think X-Men: The Last Stand is probably one of the best X-Men movies. One of the best X-Men movies out there. And I mean, what I liked about the X-Men, the third X-Men movie, and the previous two, is I like how for the original three X-Men movies, it feels like there's a natural progression between all the X-Men characters, including Logan, like him not wanting to join the X-Men, and in the third one he becomes the leader of the X-Men after Cyclops gets murdered by the Phoenix. That's explained in the movie. Jean Grey split personality after she gets resurrected and comes back from assumingly dying at the end of X2 after her sacrifice of saving her friends, the X-Men. And the X-Men 2, now this thing out of nowhere, X-Men 2 kind of showed, like, the show that, Jean Grey, might actually, might return when the, kind of, showed a little shadow of the Phoenix, referencing her transitioning to the Phoenix, and also reference the Phoenix Saga from it's also known as by comic book fans, like, comic fans called the Phoenix Saga. Now, a big reason I think why people didn't like X-Men 3 because it wasn't exactly what they wanted with the well, it wasn't really the Dark Phoenix story that the fans wanted. And I'm just going to say this. Have any of those fans seen the X-Men movies, the first two ones? Did they remember the first two X-Men movies? I'm just saying, look, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think we were ever going to get the X-Men Dark Phoenix story that the comic book fan genre wanted, that the comic book fan base ever wanted. Let's be honest. From Fox Studio in this universe, was the first two worlds that this world is established in the first two timelines of the first two X-Men movies, directed by Bryan Singer. I don't think even if Bryan Singer was going to direct the third one, I still don't think anyone was going to be happy because, well, nobody, the OG X-Men fans, only the OG, like the fans of the comics, and fans of like 90s X-Men cartoon called X-Men in the Animated Series, which was the only X-Men content you could get for the time before, besides the Fox content of their movies. And so what I'm trying to tell you is, if you ever look at any of the images from the X-Men's comics, or any of the images from X-Men the Animated Series, what part of tells your soul that Bryan Singer understood the fans and ever gave you what you wanted? Why do you think he would do such a better job with Cyclops and wouldn't kill him off early in the script? Even if he did make him the leader, how do you know he wouldn't kill him off eventually by the Phoenix? Like in the halfway point. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't think that these look, Bryan Singer, like, I like Feinstein's X-Men movie, but his movies were never made for the fans. It was just made for the average moviegoers. Where the first two comic book, where the average moviegoers just happened to be more of the fans in the comic book community, actual community, being the fans of the X-Men movies. For the time when these came out, you can kind of tell, like, this by the extent that that's what they're also trying to go for. Like, they kind of downplaying the fantasy element, and they kind of taking away the fantasy element of the X-Men comics and the X-Men cartoons are known for, in terms of this, and basically, but not really, but mostly doubling down on the sci-fi element, and while taking away all the fantasy, taking away the fantasy elements. That's probably why we don't have them wearing the costumes anymore. And the Ryan Cena run that reimagined the X-Men. For better or for worse, I'm not sure. That's why I give the X-Men original trilogy a 10 out of 10. All three X-Men movies get a 10 out of 10 in the original trilogy saga run. Starring Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Pretty much in the only role that... pretty much the only X-Men... Pretty much in the main role of the movie title X-Men. Instead of titling Wolverine and the X-Men. I think would have been a more fitting title. Just say Wolverine and X-Men. Would have probably been a more fitting title than X-Men. So I say he's the only character that matters because he kind of is by the end of the trilogy. Because all three X-Men movies directly focus on Wolverine's character growth. As him as the main narrator, viewer of the main character that we follow in the movie, and pretty much the one point of view character is Wolverine. Not saying it gets boring after a while, although I do say it does get tedious. Real tedious. Like, you wish you could go back in time and watch the X-Men, the animated series. Is what the trilogy makes me feel like. I wish I could go back and watch X-Men the Animated Series, the original show. Or the new show, X-Men 97 on Disney+, the sequel show to X-Men the Animated Series. Because in those shows, the X-Men focus on more than just one fucking character. And it did an effort to flesh out the X-Men, not just flesh out one person. When X-Men is in the fucking title. But that's what the trilogy, I don't think it was in trilogy's intention, but that's how it happened. It seemed like that was the accidental non-intention of the directors to do. To make a trilogy about the X-Men, but instead they made a trilogy about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But I'm not even sure if that was on their purpose or there by accident. I don't know. That's what this X-Men trilogy feels like to me. I mean, I still love it and all. It's just not everything. It's not really X-Men. It's not really it doesn't really focus. The X-Men movies don't really focus on the main X-Men members to flesh them out and give them full real life characters. Make them full real life characters, like the real life characters, unlike the X-Men comics or even the X-Men the animated series. X-Men the animated series could do that, and X-Men in the comics they could do that, but make them feel like besides this unique, they could make them feel like in time they can like flesh their characters out, you know, and besides just having them interact. And they do that though, interact with Wolverine. They do that. That's about all they do is interact. We don't really get to know them, or I mean. Rogue, I will say, Rogue, in the first one, we got to know her a little in the first one, but she doesn't get really, fleshed out more than she gets she doesn't get more screen time or better character development outside of the first X-Men movie. She's more absent in the sequels, which is strange because she was one of the, her relationship, her and what I wish for because her and Logan were like the two main characters of the first X-Men movies. That also of the first X-Men movie that really seemed to want to focus on Rogue and Logan getting to know each other and becoming buds by the end. And I wish Nightcrawler there was a reason why Nightcrawler's didn't join the X-Men or didn't make a. I wish there was a reason like where it's Nightcrawler in X-Men 3, The Last Stand. Because I really like that version of Nightcrawler from X2. But I guess he didn't become an X-Men member in this universe. Well, at least Beast did. And we find out in X3 he's an X-Men member already. Then he joins the X-Men, they have final fight in the third act. When Logan takes the mantle of the leader and takes control and decides to lead the team into battle. That's why I give X-Men from 2000 X-Men movie directed by Bryan Singer. The sequel was also directed by Bryan Singer. And I give that one that's called X-Men 2 United. Both a 10 out of 10 X-Men The Last Stand, directed by a different guy. I forget his name. This movie was also pretty good. X-Men: The Last Stand was a great was a good was pretty good, I thought, you know. I give all 3 X-Men movies in the original trilogy a 10 out of 10. From X-Men to X-Men: The Last Stand, X-Men and X-Men 2, the last and X-Men. So X-Men to X-Men: The Last Stand, all of them get a 10 out of 10 by me. I approve them. They're good. I love them. Okay, subscribe by hitting the bell first, and then second hit the subscribe button, and hit the thumbs up button to like my content. Check out my other content. Share my content to everyone you can think on that might like it. And remember to subscribe to my content by hitting the bell first, then hit the subscribe button in that order. Second. Subscribe button in second. You have to hit. Hit the bell first, then hit the subscribe button second. Okay. That's my review on the original Fox X-Men trilogy, starring Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I give it a 10 out of 10. I approve on these movies. Goodbye.